What's up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Mile High Hockey. Special guest, my guy, Jake Shapiro, joining me today in for Mike Evans. Jake, the Avalanche get a win last night in Philadelphia. Hey, they're up 3-0 in the third period. Things are looking great. Then it gets a little too close for comfort, but the Avs do get the 2 points, get the 3-2 win. What was your biggest takeaway from the first game of this East Coast swing for Colorado?
Yeah, well, I'm not really all that interested in how road wins happen as long as they happen. You toyed with maybe a little bit of fate there at the end, but there's times, and I do our Nuggets podcast where I just marvel at Nikola Jokic's greatness. I think the same can be said last night after Cale Makar. He was so good in that game. And it's just really fun to watch him play hockey. Like, it doesn't need to be that deep sometimes. And, it was really cool before the game to see Erik Johnson honored. He was one of the icons of Colorado sports for a long time. So it was just a fun night. And I was glad to see Cale play hockey. And I was glad that the Avs came away with a couple points there because they had been struggling a little bit. And I think they look like a little bit of a different team with Justus Annunen in that at sometimes.
Yeah, it was interesting. All right, so you hit on a few things there that we got to get to all of them. Let's start with Cale because, Jake, he had 2 goals, and then he had a third goal taken off the board. I mean, we came yay close to having a Cale Makar hat trick against the Flyers last night, and I'm watching it, and they called goalie interference on Jonathan Drouin. This is one of those rules, and I know our audience is a fan of a lot of different sports. This, to me, is kind of like the catch rule in football. Like, no one truly understands it. I didn't think it was goalie interference. I'm glad it didn't cost the Avs in the win column, but a defenseman getting a hat trick is rare. You would have loved to see Makar get that hat trick, and you would love, honestly, some more clarification on what exactly is and is not goalie interference in the NHL these days.
Yeah, I would love a more detailed summary of what occurs when they call a penalty or disallow a goal or whatever. You see this, the NFL's actually done a really good job of this with the officials explaining if their mics work and if the crowd isn't too loud to not hear them. And I think MLS and NBA, especially with late calls, come out with a report later, the next day with detailing what they are. And sometimes it's a little wonky because it's like, here are the officials telling you the officials have not messed up. Ooh, shocking. Right. But at least it lends for more detail of why it was called in the way it was called, even if it is horse hockey at times. So I would like for a little bit more from the NHL, and they have given us a little bit more in recent years with more detailed explanations. Goalie interference is such a weird rule, and I can tell you as a former hockey official that it is a very judgment call. It is a very judgment-based call. So yeah, that's tough to see that Cale loses his hat trick. But at the same time, you look at the Norris Trophy odds today, and I know it's just November, but Cale is the runaway favorite for this award. And it got me thinking a little bit of like, is there some potential for him to get the Norris Hart, duo? I think a lot would need to go right, but I'm just saying, like, he's already won one Norris. I wouldn't be surprised if he won another, but the Hart, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, I mean, the Hart as a defenseman, as you know, is a near impossible task. It's like a running back winning MVP in the NFL these days. It just doesn't happen very often. All right, let's talk about EJ because that was a fun moment last night with Erik Johnson playing his 1,000th and first NHL game, but getting honored as the 1,000th game. Gabriel Landeskog surprises him on the ice. I think this was just fate, Jake, that the schedule lined up to have the Avs in Philadelphia. No way anyone could have planned this, that, we're going to celebrate EJ playing 1,000. I wrote about this at denversports.com. People should check it out, especially the video the Flyers put together. It had Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, Landeskog, and Peyton Manning in it, congratulating EJ on game number 1,000. And then Gabe comes out on the ice, surprises him. Listen, man, EJ didn't put up the gaudiest of stats, but Jake, the guy played here for 13 years, finally helped the Avs get to the mountaintop in 2022. I know he's not the first guy that comes to mind when we all think of all-time great Colorado athletes, but he does deserve to be in the conversation of some of the more important Colorado athletes we've ever had.
Look, you played 1,000 games in the NHL. That's a heck of an accomplishment in its own. I think only, I think we're only over like 100 and X number of guys that have done that. It's not many guys that have done it. I think it's like around 200 right now. I haven't checked in a while, but it is a very rare class. And 70% of those games came with the Avalanche. There's a real chance that Erik Johnson ends up in a Hall of Fame, and he's going to go into the Hall of Fame wearing an Av sweater, basically. That is the level of player Erik Johnson is. And, he's a defensive defenseman. So as you kind of alluded to, Will, his stats are not there. But he was an integral part of their cup run. He was an integral part of not one, but two different eras of Avalanche hockey. And, within the last year and a half now, because Erik was gone a little bit earlier, but within the last year and a half now, the two longest standing Denver sports athletes, longest tenured sports athletes, and they'd been this for a while, were Charlie Blackmon and Erik Johnson. And they came in right around the exact same time, and they had been the longest tenured guys for the last 2 or 3 years. As of a month ago, with Charlie retiring, we now have a new answer to this trivia question. I'm not even sure what it is off the top of my head, but I just remember Erik being a staple of the Avalanche and such an important player. He's going to sign a one-day contract to retire an Av at one point, and it's really cool to see, other Colorado icons like Peyton Manning and Gabe Landeskog honor him and go completely out of their way for a guy who was so meaningful for the Avalanche.
I think the answer to your trivia question is probably Gabriel Landeskog. We can look it up, but obviously Gabe hasn't played in a few years. Mike and I have gone round and round about that. We won't dive into that today. Let's talk about Justus Annunen, because, Jake, I was there on Friday night when the Juice got pulled against the Capitals after 3 goals, 6 shots, 22 minutes into the game against Washington. Georgiev's on IR, but it's like the fakiest of fake IRs because he's on the road trip. Heck, I think there's a chance he starts on Thursday night. But good to see Annunen have a bounce-back game. I think we've all sort of realized this guy's not going to play 50 games, 60 games a year, but you are going to need him for 20, 25 nights. And it was nice to see Juice play pretty well, particularly the first 50 minutes of that game last night.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Avalanche are in a situation right now where they probably have an above-average backup goalie and a below-average starting goalie. And it makes it kind of confusing of which one should be playing at times. It does lend yourself to a nice rotation of goalies, which you absolutely need in the NHL season, and you need even into the NHL playoffs a lot of times as well. So the Avs have the depth at goalie. They just don't have the guy who's going to win you a series, and that's been a problem for the Avalanche for quite a while, frankly. And the Avs a couple of years ago proved they can win a Stanley Cup without having the goalie that can steal you a playoff series. The problem is I don't think this team is quite as good as the one 2 years ago, and that's not that hot of a take. So I still look at this position and I say, I don't know if the answer is on the roster as of today. The problem is you don't necessarily have the assets to go and get one of those guys. So it kind of feels almost like a ticking time bomb or something where it's like, can they get through the season with these goalies, and can they accomplish their goals with these goalies? I lead towards no, but Justus Annunen, I think in my mind, is a valuable NHL player, and he's a guy who would be a great backup for whoever the actual guy is coming to Denver, which you hope is someone better than Georgiev, because frankly, I'm done with him.
Yeah, well, I think that's well said, and a little bit of a parting shot in your last sentence there. I want to hit on Valeri Nichushkin real quick before we get out of here. I was in the room with him Friday night when he spoke to the media for the first time, at least the local media. Since his 6-month suspension, got to be honest, he was raw, he was contrite, he was honest. He knows he messed up, and he's feeling that he messed up. He talked for nearly 5 minutes, a lot longer than he talked after what happened in the Seattle thing. Jake, I got the vibe, and I hope I'm not wrong, but I got the vibe. This guy knows it's serious this time. He cannot mess up again, and he is sorry and does appreciate the support. Could be famous last words. I know addiction's a nasty thing. We'll see. But I don't know. I walked away impressed, and I'm not sure on Friday morning I thought I was going to walk away impressed, and I did.
I know some people who have dealt with addiction, and no matter how honest they are, no matter how knowing they are that they messed up and that they don't want to be that person and they don't want to do those things again, sometimes their they don't really have a choice. I mean, it's messed up to say because, I'm not someone who deals with addiction. I feel like everyone has their choice. I have control over my body, yada, yada, yada. But that's just not how it works for people that deal with this sickness. And we don't know for sure that Valeri has this sickness or he just likes to party, because we don't really know Valeri, the person, but he has been in rehab multiple times, which suggests that he may have addiction. So I know people that have been clean for decades and they felt good about themselves. And then all of a sudden something wrong happened one night and they relapse. So I'm not going to say that, it's never going to happen again. And I come away from what you wrote on denversports.com and what he said to you as, oh man, this guy figured it out. What I did come away from that with is he knows he messed up, like you said, and he is working his way back into the team's good graces. And he really respects and honors and wants the trust of his teammates. And he's going to do what he can to build it back up. And I think that's a really important step.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Like he did say too, he's just taking it one day at a time. He's living one day at a time, and fresh out of rehab, like you said, that's the approach he needs to take. I think the Avalanche have surrounded him with a good support system. His teammates have his back. I walked away from morning skate. Nathan McKinnon was elated. He was back. Cale Makar, Jared Bednar, like there's the support there. Now it's just about stacking those good dates together. We are all rooting for Valeri Nichushkin. All right, Mike Evans will be back with me on Thursday. Jake, appreciate you stepping in. That'll do it for another edition of Mile High Hockey. We'll catch you in about